The 1970s gave us muscle, madness, and machines that didn't know when to quit. But not every motorcycle from that era was safe to ride or easy to handle. No filters, no safety nets, just raw two-wheeled chaos. These are the 12 most dangerous motorcycles of the 1970s. Number 12. Harley-Davidson XLCR 1000 Cafe Racer, 1977. The 1970s were a time when Harley-Davidson was trying to reinvent itself, and in 1977 they rolled out a bike that no one really saw coming. The Harley-Davidson XLCR 1000 Cafe Racer wasn't just a detour from their usual cruiser lineup, it was a leap into unfamiliar territory. Built to look like a European-style cafe racer, this bike wasn't about comfort or classic charm. It was about attitude, but that attitude came with consequences. This machine looked fast, even when it wasn't moving. With its blacked-out frame, raked fairing, and low handlebars, it had the silhouette of a street fighter, ready to take on the world. But once riders climbed aboard, many realized it was more bark than bite, and sometimes the bark was dangerous. Handling was one of the first red flags. Harley borrowed the frame from their Sportster lineup, stretching and tweaking it for this new design. The result was a chassis that didn't quite know what it wanted to be. At high speeds, it felt vague in the corners. At low speeds, it felt stiff. The weight distribution was off, and for newer riders, that meant sudden moments of instability. Power came from a familiar heart, the classic V-twin engine displacing 997 cubic centimeters. On paper, it sounded promising. In practice, it came with vibration levels that could rattle mirrors loose and fatigue riders fast. The torque came in around 55 pound-feet, which gave it decent grunt, but the throttle delivery was anything but smooth. Top speed landed near 110 miles per hour, but getting there didn't inspire confidence. The suspension setup was harsh, especially the rear shocks, which struggled on imperfect roads. Braking didn't help either. The dual front discs offered minimal feel, and the rear brake lacked bite. Horsepower sat around 61 horsepower. That would have been fine if the rest of the bike was composed, but it wasn't. Fuel economy hovered near 45 miles per gallon, but most riders were too busy holding on to notice. The Harley-Davidson XLCR 1000 Cafe Racer looked like rebellion on two wheels, but underneath the styling was a motorcycle that handled poorly, braked worse, and left riders guessing. A bold move from Harley and a dangerous one. Number 11. BSA Thunderbolt, 1970 to 1972. Some motorcycles earn their reputation slowly, one oil stain at a time. The BSA Thunderbolt from the early 1970s promised classic British style with reliable performance, but what riders got was something far more unpredictable. At a glance, it looked like a bike built for country roads and easy weekends. Underneath that polished tank and chrome trim, though, was a machine that didn't always play fair. The BSA Thunderbolt ran on a single carburetor parallel twin engine that displaced 654 cubic centimeters. It was meant to be the simpler, more user-friendly sibling to the BSA Lightning, and in some ways, it was. Fewer carbs meant easier tuning, less complexity, but that didn't mean fewer problems. The Thunderbolt had a long list of mechanical quirks that could turn a smooth ride into a roadside repair session. One of the biggest concerns was reliability. These bikes were known for leaking oil right from the showroom floor. Even after a few hundred miles, gaskets would weep, seals would soften, and the bike would slowly mark its territory. For some owners, it became a game of chasing leaks, tightening bolts, swapping parts, hoping it would hold. Many found that it rarely did. Torque figures landed near 38 pound-feet, which gave the Thunderbolt respectable pull at low revs. But that was only useful if the bike decided to start. Electrical issues were common, with weak charging systems and inconsistent spark delivery causing endless headaches. Kickstarting a Thunderbolt wasn't just a chore, it was often a gamble. Top speed was advertised at around 105 miles per hour, but most riders never dared to push it that far. Vibrations became severe at higher speeds, making long rides physically punishing. Bolts would shake loose, mirrors would blur, and riders would quickly learn to back off the throttle before the whole bike came apart. Horsepower was rated near 46 horsepower, a decent number for its class, but it rarely translated to confident performance. Handling felt uncertain, with a soft front end and vague steering. The bike's frame flexed under pressure, which made cornering feel more like negotiation than control. Fuel economy hovered around 40 miles per gallon, though that mattered little if the bike spent more time in the garage than on the road. The BSA Thunderbolt was a classic in theory, but in reality it demanded constant attention. It had charm, sure, but that charm often came wrapped in grease and frustration. For riders who expected more, the Thunderbolt proved to be a risky ride and a reminder that good looks can sometimes hide serious flaws. Number 10. Norton Commando 750 Combat 1972. There are bikes that earn their danger on the road, and then there are bikes like the Norton Commando 750 Combat, machines that were dangerous the moment they left the factory. In 1972, Norton took a well-loved platform and turned it into a performance machine. But in doing so, they also created a ticking time bomb, dressed in polished chrome and British pride. At the center of the Combat model was a parallel twin engine displacing 745 cubic centimeters. Norton pushed this engine harder than ever before, tweaking the compression ratio and increasing the redline to chase more power. The result? More speed, more stress, and a mechanical design that simply could not keep up with its own ambition. Horsepower landed at around 65 horsepower, which sounded impressive on paper. In practice, it put overwhelming strain on the main bearings, components that were not upgraded to match the new demands. Failures came fast and often. Riders reported catastrophic engine blowouts well under 2,000 miles. The motor, though willing, wasn't built to last under that kind of pressure. Handling, while praised at the time for the innovative isoelastic frame system, came with its own learning curve. The rubber-mounted engine reduced vibration, but introduced a slight lag in response. Riders expecting direct feedback had to adjust quickly, especially during aggressive cornering. Misjudge the movement, and the bike could react unpredictably. Torque figures were solid, sitting near 54 pound-feet, but that only made the engine stress worse. Combined with questionable build consistency, the Commando Combat earned a reputation for being a grenade waiting to go off, particularly in the hands of riders who like to push. Top speed came in just over 115 miles per hour, which was fast for the time. But reaching that number meant putting full faith in a bike known to vibrate itself into failure. Even when it held together, the experience was far from confidence-inspiring. The gearbox was clunky, and the brakes, while usable, felt wooden under stress. Fuel economy hovered around 42 miles per gallon, but the cost of ownership was measured more in labor hours than dollars. Keeping a Commando Combat on the road required constant vigilance. The Norton Commando 750 Combat was a brilliant idea, sabotaged by rushed execution. It promised speed and style, but delivered stress and breakdowns. For many, it was a dream bike that too often became a nightmare. One wrong twist of the throttle, and it could all come undone. Number 9. Cooper 250 Enduro, 1973 to 1975. Built through a short-lived partnership between American importer Frank Cooper and a Spanish manufacturer, the Cooper 250 Enduro was meant to be a game-changer in the off-road market. Instead, it turned into a cautionary tale about cutting corners and rushing to market. The engine was a two-stroke single, displacing 238 cubic centimeters. It was sourced from Moto Guzzi in Mexico, and while it offered a decent amount of grunt for its size, it was let down by everything around it. The frame was made in Spain, the engine in Mexico, and the final assembly happened in California. That level of international coordination sounds ambitious, until you realize it led to mismatched components, poor tolerances, and endless mechanical issues. Torque came in around 21 pound-feet, which was actually competitive for the time. But torque alone couldn't save a bike whose biggest flaw was its inconsistency. Clutches slipped, brakes faded, and ignition systems failed without warning. Riders could never fully trust what the bike would do from 1 mile to the next. Horsepower hovered near 26 horsepower, a reasonable figure for a lightweight enduro, but the build quality made it feel like every horsepower had to be earned. Kickstarting was notoriously unreliable. Fuel lines cracked easily, bolts vibrated loose. Even simple tasks like adjusting the chain could become a half-day ordeal, thanks to cheap hardware and soft aluminum castings. Top speed was just over 70 miles per hour, but few dared to reach it. At higher speeds, the suspension struggled to keep the bike stable, and the steering became twitchy. The Cooper would wander under braking and buck under throttle, especially on uneven terrain. It demanded constant attention and punished lapses in focus. Fuel economy came in around 50 miles per gallon, but its real efficiency lay in teaching riders how to fix things on the trail. Carrying tools wasn't optional, it was survival. The Cooper 250 Enduro was a brave experiment, but one that lacked the refinement and reliability needed to earn trust. It looked like a dirt bike, sounded like a dirt bike, and even rode like one, until it didn't. For many who bought it, the dream of affordable off-road freedom turned quickly into a struggle just to keep it running. Number 8. Moto Guzzi V7 Sport, early 1970s. Elegance has a strange way of hiding danger. The Moto Guzzi V7 Sport looked like it had everything under control. Sleek lines, a signature longitudinal V-twin, and the kind of presence that made riders stop and stare. But beneath that polished Italian exterior was a machine that required constant respect and attention. One wrong move, and it reminded you just how unpredictable it could be. At the heart of the V7 Sport was an air-cooled V-twin engine displacing 744 cubic centimeters. It was laid out longitudinally, meaning the crankshaft ran parallel to the frame. While this gave the bike its distinctive look and sound, it also created some serious handling quirks. Twist the throttle hard, and the bike would torque to one side. For unprepared riders, that lurch could catch them completely off guard, especially during low-speed maneuvers. Horsepower came in around 70 horsepower, which gave it excellent straight-line speed for the time. But the frame, although advanced in design, was still a mixed bag. It sat low and handled well in sweeping turns, but it struggled in tighter corners. The weight distribution favored the front end, and combined with the shaft drive, it created a wallowing sensation that made aggressive riding more of a gamble than a thrill. Torque figures hovered near 52 pound-feet, and that strong low-end pull made the bike feel eager and muscular. But it also meant that throttle input needed to be smooth and precise. Too much twist, too soon, and the rear suspension would compress awkwardly, unsettling the chassis at the worst possible time. Top speed edged just past 120 miles per hour. Impressive for a bike of its class. But at those speeds, stability became a moving target. The suspension was built for comfort over precision, and the narrow tires of the era did little to inspire confidence when pushed to the edge. Long highway rides exposed another flaw: heavy vibration that worked its way into the rider's hands and feet, making extended rides physically exhausting. Fuel economy floated around 45 miles per gallon, which made it a practical long-haul option on paper. But it was the mechanical complexity that often turned ownership into a challenge. Valve adjustments, electrical gremlins, and clutchwear kept riders busy in the garage. Cold starts were often a battle, especially in cooler climates where tuning had to be spot on. Misfires and stalling were common if carburetors were even slightly out of sync. The charging system also struggled under load, particularly with lights and accessories in use. Riders often carried tools, not for upgrades, but just to keep the bike running during long trips. And while spares were available, labor was a different story. Only the patient or mechanically inclined stuck around long-term. The Moto Guzzi V7 Sport was a masterpiece with a wild streak. When it worked, it was magic. When it didn't, it could leave riders stranded or shaken. A beautiful machine, but one that always demanded respect. Number 7. Yamaha XS650, 1970 to 1979. The Yamaha XS650 was introduced as Japan's answer to the British twin, aiming to blend reliability with classic styling. But beneath that clean design was a bike that delivered just as much punishment as pleasure. The engine was a parallel twin, displacing 653 cubic centimeters, air-cooled and designed to mimic the feel of British machines, like the Triumph Bonneville. Yamaha succeeded in many ways. It was simpler to maintain and easier to start, but it also inherited some of the very traits it was trying to replace. Chief among them was vibration. At cruising speeds, the engine buzzed through the handlebars and foot pegs with relentless force. Over time, that kind of constant feedback didn't just wear out parts, it wore out riders. Torque came in around 37 pound-feet, delivered low in the rev range. That gave the XS650 a satisfying push off the line and decent pull through the mid-range. But on longer rides, that torque, combined with stiff suspension and a narrow seat to create a punishing experience. Highway riding often became a battle against arm fatigue and lower back pain. Horsepower was rated near 53 horsepower, respectable for the era, and more than enough to get the bike up to speed. But high-speed stability was never its strong suit. The chassis, though solid at moderate pace, began to flex under pressure. Hit a corner too hard or a bump at the wrong moment, and the bike could twitch in ways that made your heart skip. Top speed hovered around 105 miles per hour, but getting there was a noisy, shaky affair. The drum brakes on early models lacked bite, and even after disc upgrades came along, the stopping power still lagged behind the engine's performance. Riders often found themselves planning their stops well in advance, just in case. Fuel economy sat close to 50 miles per gallon, one of the few practical advantages. But maintenance was a constant concern. Electrical issues were not uncommon, and oil leaks occasionally reminded riders of the British bikes it sought to improve upon. Chain adjustments were frequent, and the kickstarter often became the backup when the electric starter failed. Misfiring coils could cause sudden power loss, and the charging system wasn't always up to the task during night rides. The bike also had a tendency to stall at idle if not perfectly tuned. Cold starts in the winter were unreliable, even with fresh plugs, and though parts were widely available, some owners felt like they spent more time wrenching than riding. The Yamaha XS650 was a solid performer in theory, but in execution, it tested both machine and man. It could be fast, fun, and even charming, but only if you were willing to wrestle with it every step of the way. Got your own story about a bike that tried to kill you? Let us know in the comments. Smash that like button if this list brought flashbacks, and subscribe for more jaw-dropping rides from motorcycle history's wildest decades. Number 6. Honda CB750, 1969 to 1978. The Honda CB750 was a revolution on two wheels. It introduced the world to the transverse inline four-cylinder engine and brought performance and reliability to the masses. But while the bike earned its place in history, it also carried risks that made it dangerous for riders who expected more control than the machine was ready to give. The heart of the CB750 was a four-cylinder, air-cooled engine displacing 736 cubic centimeters. It was powerful, smooth, and surprisingly refined for its time. That smoothness, however, was deceptive. For many riders, it encouraged speed without warning them of the consequences, especially when it came to the bike's handling and braking systems. Horsepower landed near 67 horsepower, impressive for a production motorcycle of its era. But the chassis and suspension were still evolving. The front forks lacked the stiffness to manage the bike's weight under hard braking or cornering, and the rear shocks often bottomed out on rough roads. For a machine capable of serious speed, it lacked the finesse needed to handle it confidently. Torque came in around 44 pound-feet, which gave the bike strong mid-range power and excellent acceleration. But that same power delivery, when combined with the heavy curb weight, made the CB750 difficult to control in emergency maneuvers. Novice riders in particular found themselves overwhelmed when trying to slow the bike down or change direction quickly. Top speed touched 125 miles per hour, which was fast enough to leave its competition behind. But the single front disc brake, standard on early models, faded quickly under repeated use. Stopping distances stretched, and feedback through the lever was inconsistent. Later models improved braking slightly, but the core problem remained. Too much go, not enough stop. Fuel economy averaged close to 45 miles per gallon, a decent figure given its size and performance. But mechanical complexity added a new kind of danger. Valve adjustments, carb synchronization, and electrical maintenance were constant chores. When neglected, the bike's performance dipped sharply, often catching riders off guard. Riders who treated it like a casual commuter were often caught off balance by its hidden speed. The bike invited spirited riding, but rarely offered the support needed to do it safely. On wet roads, the heavy weight combined with basic tires made traction management an issue. Cold starts could be tricky, especially when carbs were out of tune. And while it helped define the superbike era, it also taught many their first hard lesson in throttle discipline. The Honda CB750 was groundbreaking, no doubt, but with great power came responsibility and a learning curve steep enough to surprise even seasoned riders. It wasn't just fast for its time, it was a bike that punished overconfidence. A legend, yes, but one that demanded real respect to ride safely. Number 5. Ducati 750 GT, 1971 to 1974. There are motorcycles that demand to be ridden, and then there are motorcycles that demand to be understood first. The Ducati 750 GT was the kind of bike that looked elegant parked outside a cafe, but carried a quiet warning for those who dared to push it too hard. It was Ducati's first attempt at a V-twin road bike, and while it paved the way for future legends, it also came with a long list of compromises that made it a risky ride for the unprepared. Powering the GT was a 90-degree V-twin engine, displacing 748 cubic centimeters. This engine introduced Ducati's now iconic L-twin layout, known for its narrow profile and unique sound. But in the early 70s, the execution was still raw. The engine required constant tuning to stay in sync, and carburetors needed frequent adjustment. For riders unfamiliar with its quirks, starting the bike could become a ritual of frustration. Horsepower was rated near 50 horsepower, which gave it decent performance for its time. But that power delivery was unpredictable, especially in the lower gears. The throttle response was twitchy, and combined with the tall gearing, it made slow speed control a challenge. Urban riding was often jerky, and misjudging the clutch engagement could lead to an embarrassing stall, or worse, a sudden lurch forward. Torque figures came in around 44 pound-feet, which gave the GT a satisfying surge once it got going. But the bike's handling wasn't always up to the task. The frame geometry, while sporty, felt nervous at higher speeds. Add in a spongy front fork and unpredictable rear shocks, and the result was a machine that struggled to stay composed when pushed into corners. Top speed was listed at roughly 115 miles per hour, but few riders felt confident chasing it. The brakes, a single disc up front and a drum at the rear, lacked the bite needed to match the bike's momentum. Stopping distances were long, and fade was a real issue during aggressive riding. Fuel economy hovered close to 45 miles per gallon, but long-distance reliability was a coin toss. Electrical gremlins, worn clutch cables, and overheating were common complaints. Riders who didn't stay on top of maintenance often found themselves stranded. The Ducati 750 GT was a beautiful machine with real pedigree, but beneath the polished tank and exposed engine lay a ride that could turn unpredictable in an instant. It wasn't just a bike, it was a test of patience, skill, and mechanical intuition. Number 4, Suzuki GT750 Water Buffalo, 1970 to 1977. There is something inherently wild about putting a liquid-cooled, two-stroke triple on the street, and Suzuki did exactly that with the GT750 Le Mans. Nicknamed the Water Buffalo in the United States and the Kettle in the United Kingdom, this motorcycle was less about finesse and more about force. It looked imposing, sounded like a chainsaw under pressure, and rode like a locomotive with a questionable brake lever. The heart of the GT750 was a two-stroke, three-cylinder engine, displacing 738 cubic centimeters. It was the first production Japanese motorcycle to feature liquid cooling, and it made a bold statement about Suzuki's ambitions. The engine was smooth and strong, but it also produced heat, smoke, and an exhaust note that could wake the neighborhood. In tight traffic or slow-moving city streets, it was known to overheat, and the cooling system wasn't always able to keep up. Horsepower came in around 67 horsepower, which gave the bike solid performance on the open road. But handling was another story. The frame was soft, and the suspension was tuned more for comfort than control. In corners, the bike had a tendency to wallow, and riders often felt disconnected from the front end. It was a machine that preferred straight lines and smooth highways to curves and quick transitions. Torque was rated at 55 pound-feet, and while the delivery was relatively linear for a two-stroke, it still required a firm hand on the throttle. The bike's weight, over 500 pounds dry, meant that acceleration felt more like a gradual shove than a snap. But once it got going, it moved with purpose. Top speed reached about 110 miles per hour, and at that pace, things got unpredictable. The brakes, especially the front discs, were known to fade quickly under stress. The bike could outrun its own stopping power, and riders had to plan every hard brake with distance in mind. Fuel economy hovered near 35 miles per gallon, a reminder that performance came at a price. On long rides, the tank range felt limiting, and oil consumption was typical of a big two-stroke, frequent and messy. The Suzuki GT750 Le Mans was a bold experiment that stood out in its time, but behind its innovation was a machine that challenged its rider at every turn. Heavy, fast, and only partly under control, it made every ride feel just a little more dangerous than it needed to be. Number 3, Yamaha RD350, 1973 to 1975. Every now and then, a motorcycle punches above its weight so hard, it leaves a mark on an entire generation. The Yamaha RD350 did exactly that. Compact, aggressive, and unapologetically raw. It was one of the most thrilling two-strokes of its time, but also one of the most dangerous. The engine was a two-stroke parallel twin, displacing 347 cubic centimeters, air-cooled and tuned with a sharp edge. Yamaha managed to squeeze real power from a relatively small platform, and the result was a bike that felt like a rocket strapped to a bicycle. It was light, fast, and completely unforgiving when pushed too hard. Horsepower came in around 39 horsepower, which might sound tame today, but on a bike weighing just over 350 pounds, it delivered instant acceleration. The power band hit like a switch, smooth below, wild above. Riders who were not ready for the surge often found themselves out of shape mid-corner or staring at the sky as the front wheel lifted unexpectedly. Torque sat near 31 pound-feet, and while that figure was respectable, it was the delivery that made it volatile. The engine came alive at higher revs, and if you were not paying attention, it could snap forward with a burst of energy that overwhelmed the chassis. Misjudging a shift or grabbing too much throttle could lead to sudden loss of control. Top speed hovered around 105 miles per hour, and getting there was fast. But staying stable was another matter. The suspension was basic, and the narrow tires offered little confidence in tight turns or on rough surfaces. Wobble, flex, and nervous steering became part of the experience at higher speeds. Fuel economy was relatively good at around 45 miles per gallon, but regular upkeep was essential. Fouled plugs, clogged exhausts, and oil injection issues were common, especially if the bike was ridden hard, which it almost always was. Miss a maintenance step, and the RD could turn unpredictable in an instant. The Yamaha RD350 offered riders a taste of raw speed at an affordable price, but it also demanded fast reflexes and total respect. In the hands of the skilled, it was exhilarating. In the hands of the overconfident, it was unforgiving. A true two-stroke menace from the heart of the 70s. Number 2, Suzuki TM400 Cyclone, 1971 to 1975. The Suzuki TM400 Cyclone did not just scare riders, it built a legacy around it. Released during the height of motocross enthusiasm, the Cyclone was Suzuki's big swing at dominating the off-road scene. What it delivered instead was a brutally fast, wildly unpredictable machine that became notorious for throwing even experienced riders off the saddle. At the heart of the TM400 was a two-stroke single-cylinder engine displacing 393 cubic centimeters. On paper, this was a competitive engine for motocross. In practice, it was a power plant with a split personality. Throttle response was abrupt, bordering on violent. Riders described the power band as more of a cliff than a curve. Nothing, then everything, all at once. This made the bike difficult to manage at low speeds and terrifying once it came on the pipe. Horsepower sat near 40 horsepower, which may not seem extreme by today's standards, but it arrived in a rush that made smooth delivery nearly impossible. The chassis, borrowed from earlier, smaller models, was simply not built to handle the explosive force this engine could produce. The frame flexed, the suspension bottomed out, and the front end had a habit of lifting unexpectedly during acceleration. Torque was rated around 33 pound-feet, delivered with little warning or moderation. If you were not in the exact right gear at the exact right moment, the engine could bog or launch without mercy. That kind of unpredictability made tight turns and technical sections a gamble. Sometimes the rear tire would dig in and power through, and sometimes it would spin out with zero traction. Top speed edged just above 80 miles per hour, which was respectable for an off-road racer, but keeping the bike stable at that speed was nearly impossible. The rear suspension was rudimentary, offering poor damping, and the forks were prone to deflection. On rough terrain, the Cyclone kicked, bucked, and skipped like a wild animal. Arm pump and fatigue set in fast, and any lapse in concentration could lead to a violent high side. Fuel economy hovered close to 35 miles per gallon. Not that most riders ever noticed. They were too busy hanging on for dear life. The Suzuki TM400 Cyclone was not a beginner's bike. It was not even a seasoned rider's bike. It was a machine that demanded total control, complete attention, and a strong will. Those who mastered it earned bragging rights. Those who underestimated it earned bruises. It remains one of the most unpredictable and dangerous motorcycles of the 1970s. Number 1. Kawasaki H2 Mach IV 750, 1972 to 1975. Some motorcycles are built to win races. Others are built to win headlines. The Kawasaki H2 Mach IV 750 was built to blow both out of the water. With more power than most riders knew what to do with and a chassis that struggled to keep up, it was less of a motorcycle and more of a controlled explosion on two wheels. It was fast, it was loud, and it was just as capable of making history as it was of throwing you into the nearest ditch. Underneath the fiberglass and chrome was a two-stroke inline three-cylinder engine, displacing 748 cubic centimeters. It was the kind of engine that made riders feel like they were sitting on a live wire. From the moment you cracked the throttle, the H2 surged forward with ferocity. It did not ask if you were ready. It simply went. Horsepower was rated at around 74 horsepower, and that number, combined with the bike's relatively light frame, made it one of the fastest machines on the street. But that speed came with a price. The power band was notoriously sharp, delivering its punch in the middle of the rev range like a hammer. That kind of instant acceleration could overwhelm even skilled riders, especially if they were not perfectly balanced. Torque came in at 57 pound-feet, which gave the H2 incredible roll-on power. But that torque, paired with a flexible chassis and poor suspension, created a cocktail of instability. The rear shocks were primitive, and the front forks offered little in the way of feedback. When pushed into corners, the bike had a tendency to wobble, weave, and sometimes lift the front wheel entirely. Top speed reached just under 120 miles per hour, and it got there with shocking speed. But at that velocity, the bike's flaws became dangerous. Braking systems were underpowered, especially for a machine this quick. The single front disc and rear drum lacked the bite and consistency needed for safe, repeated stops. Fuel economy averaged about 30 miles per gallon, which was expected for a two-stroke triple of this size. But few riders were focused on mileage. They were focused on survival. The Kawasaki H2 Mach IV 750 earned its nickname, the Widowmaker, not through exaggeration but through experience. It was a thrill ride wrapped in fiberglass and danger. For the daring, it offered unmatched adrenaline. For the careless, it offered a fast and painful lesson. No other motorcycle from the 1970s defined high risk quite like this one. From backroad disasters to off-road nightmares, these 12 bikes defined danger in the rawest form. They were fast, flawed, and unforgettable. If there's a death trap we missed, tell us in the comments. Hit like and subscribe for more breakdowns of the wildest, weirdest, and most dangerous motorcycles ever built.